Hey, oh, I'm not sure why you're not on, but I'm going to add you as a co-host. Hey.
Okay.
How's it going?
Hang on.
Did you have any questions or anything?
Okay. Hang on. I had to put my headphones in.
No problem.
I'm excited. And
it's pretty conversational.
Okay,
so
cool.
Those are your questions, but we pretty much go into other topics, and then there should be
okay.
on.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just share it into Facebook. So it takes like a second. So I'll like let you know when we're live, and then your bio and introduce you and everything.
Awesome.
Pull it up on my Facebook page on my phone so I could see it. All right, I'm gonna hit the button and then it'll be a little bit.
Okay.
Not long. Hey everyone, I am here for the conversation about talking about how to get more clients with your social media. And I know that this is a really important one for us. because so many of us are using social media but are not seeing results from it, which could be so frustrating. So I'm really excited to have Christine here today. I've actually seen her social media. She's so good at connecting with her audience, and she's, you know, an expert copywriter. So she's the perfect person to cover this with us. So Christine's a copywriter and mentor who helps soulful online coaches, experts, and influencers sell out launches and sign more clients by building genuine connections with their audiences. She writes sales copy for 6-figure program launches and teaches up-and-coming entrepreneurs how to write their own engaging copy that wins hearts and opens wallets. When she's not busy wrangling words, she can be found sipping green drinks, obsessing over Instagram feeds, and introverting like there's no tomorrow, which you're in perfect company here.
Okay.
We had somebody talk about introverts last week, and I think most of the group connected as an introvert. And, you know, that's partially why I wanted to bring you on here, because when we're introverts, we need and we can't stand to like talk to tons of people, or, you know, for me personally, I don't even actually like to do a lot of one-to-one talking. We need our stuff to convert quickly, and we can sometimes struggle with getting our personality out there and really connecting with people. So I'm so glad you're here today to dive into this topic.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. And yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. As an introvert, one of the things that I love about social media is that it lets me put something out without me really having to like be on, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm sharing my message, but I'm also hiding out.
Yeah, it's so funny because so many people say to me, well, you know, I'm an introvert, so I can't do social media. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's like the best way.
It is
like
the best.
You don't have to leave your house. You can meet so many people. And you know, like you don't like have to have that deeper like in-person thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think it's important too for everybody who's listening. It may just be that I think a lot of times we get drained because it feels like nobody's actually hearing us. And a lot of times it is because of lack of clarity in our messaging. Christine, what would you say are the biggest things that hold people back from like having engagement and outreach and feeling like people are hearing you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it all starts with like the core of copywriting, which is what I do. It's like the main focus of my business is writing copy for other business owners, but it always starts with like, who are you actually speaking to and who do you want to call in? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we tend to make it too much about like us and like, what do we want to say? And then we're like, I don't have anything to say, but that's not really what it starts with. It starts with like, who are you talking to and what do they need to hear in order to be drawn to you? Right. So it's like getting super cozy and clear with your ideal client and like the specifics of like kind of the thoughts that they're having, the things that they're going through in their day-to-day life. So you can be like, hey, you know, I know this about you, and you can reflect the things that they are thinking and experiencing in your content. And then people will be like, oh my gosh, like I totally resonate with this. I want to, you know, I'm going to share my opinion, or I'm going to leave a comment, or whatever it is. So I think that like that is like the main thing is not knowing who you're talking to. You have to be super clear about that, and it has to come through in your content, especially if you are newer in business, you're trying to build your brand. Right. Like that is like super, super important.
Right. Which is so funny because I think that sometimes we get confused and we like stay general in the beginning because we're like, I just want to work with anybody. Like I want, you know, I can help so many people, and we have lots of skills that could apply to a lot of different groups and types of clients. But then that makes us be really, really, really vague. For those of you guys who are on, I see that there's a bunch of you on already. Oh, Brandon, I'm glad you're here. This is a good one for you. Brandon does writing as well.
Oh, awesome.
So you guys say hello, let us know you're here. If you're watching the replay later, say replay, and, you know, drop any questions you have. And when we're talking about social media, that could be a little vague too, but we're pretty much talking about Facebook, Instagram, I would say. Are there any others? Like, I feel like those are the two most major ones, but if, I mean, LinkedIn is social media too. All this could be applied to like any of them. But I think that you spend most of your time on Instagram and Facebook connecting
Instagram. Yeah. Instagram and Facebook are my main things. Cause I've learned over the years that trying to be in too many places just does not work.
Yes.
Again, coming back to that introverted energy, like it's way more effective for me to do really well in 1 to 2 places than it is to try to be on 5 different platforms.
Yeah. So for you guys who are on, tell us below, what is the number 1 or 2 social media platforms that you want to connect with your clients on? And I'm saying that, I'm not asking where you like to spend your time. I'm actually saying where you like to connect with your clients or where your clients spend time. Because I feel like that's another thing. We accidentally make it about us, right? Like, you know, just like you were saying, I'm so glad you brought that up about really having to be clear about your potential clients, where, you know, and talking to them. I think that's why people get drained or don't even bother trying social media, because they're like, I have to be on social media all the time. I don't want to show my personal life. I don't want to be showing what I do every day. And unless that's really part of your business model or what your clients need to see, you don't have to be, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's no really rules about like what exactly you have to share. I have found that the more like vulnerable I'm willing to be and the more I am willing to like share myself as opposed to just my work, the more connection I do build with people, because people see me as a real person. They start to get invested in me like as a human. And if you are a personal brand, that can do a lot.
Right.
But you don't have to. And I definitely, this is something that I've eased into like over time, like kind of pushing my edge around being a little more like real with people. So like take baby steps and share if it's a matter of like not being on social media at all or being on social media, then just start with what you're comfortable with.
Exactly. Like you don't all have to like sign up for your Instagram and then be on it 24 hours a day.
Exactly. And you shouldn't. It's like, it's not like, I've found that like the more time I spend like in like my social media platforms, like the less I really get done. So like, yeah, spending all your days in social media is not the goal.
Right. And Tamara says she's going to go with Instagram. And I like what she's saying, because she says she's going to go with Instagram for the one that she should focus on or where her audience is. And she's an artist, so I totally agree with that. She doesn't actually like Instagram because she hates that she can't post from her computer, which I'm able to use a programming one that lets you, a scheduler or something, Tamara, that lets you know. I'm not even sure about that. So that might help. So for you guys who are on once again or watching the replay, let us know which social media platform you would really love to, that you know your clients are on and you would really love to get better at connecting with them. And of course, at any time, if you have any questions or anything like that, let us know. So actually, while we're talking about the vulnerability thing, do you have an example of something that would happen in your like real life that necessarily wouldn't be connected to your audience, but maybe that you would share on social media, or how you, like turn it into something to connect with them?
Yeah. So something that I teach as far as like copywriting for social media is, I call them teaching stories. And it's basically where you take anything that happens in your life. It could be like you went to the grocery store and something happened. You were walking your dog and like you had a realization or whatever. You basically just tell a little story about something that's going on in your life. And then you tie it back to a lesson that can benefit your ideal client. So basically the reality is anything can be turned into a lesson for people. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of fun to come up with like, okay, you know, this is kind of what's happening in my day. Like, how can I make this apply to my people? You know what I mean? So it's like, it gives people a little insight into like who you are and how you live. And then it also gives them something tangible. And because you're like, kind of like, you're kind of analyzing your life and like shining this magnifying glass on certain aspects of it. It's also like positioning you as a thought leader, because you're sharing original thoughts and ideas about your life with your people. So
Right.
I think that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah. And I have to say that was something for those of you who are like, no, that never happens. I never see it. Like there's no connections. You're wrong, because I used to be like that too. And then when I started doing it more, like you sort of almost like see stories everywhere. You know what I mean? And, you know, you can make a note, use it for the next time. You don't have to go live. And that's the worst, is because suddenly I'll have like 5 things in one day. You know what I mean? Just like make a note of them, use them for the future. You don't have to do all of them at one time when you see a bunch in a row. You could like save some.
Yes.
And I would say too, the other thing with that is the more you do it, the easier it is. And I've actually been talking about that. Some of you may have heard me say it. Sometimes when I'm going to go live or I know I haven't been live, I need to show up. I'll say like, hey, what did I do over the past 48 hours? And just kind of mentally review that time and see like what pops out at me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree that it's something that it does get easier the more you sort of like start to put your focus on like, okay, well, like what's the lesson here? Or how can I make this for my people? And then also like, I'm a big fan of like the Notes app or Evernote on your phone. Like if you come up with ideas and you're like not in a situation where you're going to be sharing content right then, just jot them down and then you have them for later. And that's actually how I never run out of content ideas. Is like,
and remember to go back to them.
Yeah.
I write them down and then I'm like, it's just like stored somewhere. So make a habit of like 15 minutes every week, like going through your ideas and seeing which ones you're going to use.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So tell us how you first got interested in writing for social media.
Yeah. So, you know, I started my copywriting business and I wasn't really sure how to get clients. Like my first couple clients were kind of accidental. Like they just sort of landed in my lap. And then I was like, well, what do I do now? So I started to I went on Instagram, I changed my bio and I was like, I'm a copywriter and like whatever. And I started posting just different things, like sharing tips about copywriting, sharing little stories about like we were just talking about, like relating things back to, you know, my ideal clients and whatever. And I started to get traction in my business just from that. Like I started getting people reaching out to me saying like, hey, I need a copywriter, like wanting to work with me, saying that they really loved my content. I had people reaching out asking if I would write their content for them, which isn't something I've ever offered, but yeah, so I started to see like, okay, this is actually helping me get clients and grow my business.
Right.
So I started putting more focus into like being strategic around like what I was sharing on social media and how I was writing and telling my stories and stuff. And so seeing the success that I had with that, like, you know, getting invited into podcast interviews and all sorts of things, I decided to like systematize that and start teaching it to other people, because I'm like, if I can just attract this stuff by writing posts, because I wasn't at the time doing very much video at all, then other people need to know how to do this too.
Right.
So that's kind of how it got started.
Yeah. So I love it. It is. And I think that is what's cool with social media is you will start to see what people like and respond to. Mm-hmm. You know,
Absolutely.
when you're showing up there consistently and really building up the relationship with them. And that's what's so important too, of like being consistent with it, because otherwise it's hard to tell. You can't really.
Yeah, it's hard. You can't track data if you're only posting like once a month.
Exactly.
And the great thing about social media is that like, it's not like you don't have to be fully committed to your post. Like if you were guest blogging for Entrepreneur, it would be like this thing that's living for such a long time. But every social media post, it's pretty short-lived. The shelf life of social media posts is short. So it gives you a lot of room to experiment without there being so much importance attached to any one single post. So I think that's really powerful because it gives you the ability to practice sharing your message, sharing different types of things to see what people do respond to. And, that's huge. That helps you become a better writer, a better marketer, and also build better relationships with your audience.
Right, right, right. So Quinn says she used to carry no cards in her purse. I love that. If you're like just a physical person, I always have like one journal that I'm using at any time for basically everything. So I will go back through it and like look for what I've written in there. Michelle says she uses the Trello app on her phone. Michelle, I love Trello too now, and having inspiration boards does make it so much easier to like not overthink things. Just get an idea, drop it in. You don't have to try to flesh it out in that moment. It is a lot more, it is like a lot more easier to not forget anything and to just kind of get it in the moment when you make it easier for yourself, and it's not something you have to remember and like write out or do a full outline for yet. Just drop the basic idea down. So tell us, what are the most common mistakes you see a lot of business owners making with their social media content?
Yeah, so definitely what we talked about with just not really speaking to anyone in particular. And then I would say also like posting and running. So I think a lot of people think like, I'll just post on social media and then I don't have to do anything else. And like all of the engagement is just going to like rain down from the sky. But like, it's social media. So like you need to be social too. Something that I do, like when I post on Instagram, I check back in like every 10 minutes for the first hour and like immediately respond to comments and like things and everything, whatever, so that like my post is getting more engagement, which helps it in the algorithm. But then I'm also like, I'm training people that when they comment, I'm there to like hang out with them. So then they're more likely to engage again.
I have to, I've been so bad. I do Instagram stories consistently, but like haven't posted on regular Instagram consistently for a while. But I like that idea of really, you know, committing to this. It's not just like drop and leave. It is like committing to showing up and having conversations, trying to have conversations with people anyway, having conversations, replying back to them. And really, you know, allowing things to settle in with them and allowing them to have, you know, access to you for a little bit. And, you know, I think nowadays with the way algorithms are and the way social media is, it is important to rearrange our strategies and try different things. And, you know, if you are really spending time on your content and dropping good posts where you've worked on them, then you do want to kind of back it up with that. You know, this isn't just like, hey, let me drop a random thing in just to post anything because it's been a while. You know, hopefully it's part of that larger strategy and you are using it to really engage with people.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point too. And another mistake I think is sometimes it seems like when I'm reading some people's posts that they're posting more just for the sake of it and there isn't really any strategy behind it. So like you really want to consider like, what are my goals for this week or this month or this quarter? And how am I going to get people to help me like reach those goals? So maybe you're trying to like build your list right now. So like, what do you need to do on social media to get people onto your email list? Maybe you're like promoting like a summit or a free event or something. What do you need to be focused on to get people into that thing? Maybe you're in an enrollment period for an offer. Like, so like start with like your goal and then think about what do I need to be posting on social media in order to like actually achieve that goal. Right. So like, that's a really important thing. And then I would say another thing that I see a lot is people, posting a lot of really inspirational content, which is great. And it makes people like excited to like read something and feel good about your story or whatever. But especially in the beginning of your business, like you need to really be focused on positioning yourself as an expert. And that is going to come down to more of like educating people, showing them that like you really know what you're talking about, sharing like results and things that you helped your clients achieve, you know, testimonials, whatever it is. So that people can be like, oh, okay, this person, this is what they do, and this is how they help people. And, you know, they can decide if they need that from you. And inspirational content often doesn't do that. And one thing that I've found talking to some people is that sometimes their audience doesn't really even know like what they actually do or what they actually sell because they never talk about it. Right. So it's also really important to actually make offers.
Yes. You guys who are like, how do I make an offer? Look at the last truth or dare that I posted.
Oh, there you go.
As the truth or dare, like, go make an offer. Like, just do it. Right? Because the truth is that, you can't make people work so hard to find out how to work with you.
Yeah.
They're already going through tough stuff. They're already struggling with something, which is why they need you. And it shouldn't also, on top of that, be a struggle to find out what you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is, if you are sharing valuable content and you are like, educating people and all these things, like, it's not, I know some people are afraid of being salesy or pushy. And so they don't want to like make an offer in their posts. But like, if you're sharing valuable content, then no one's going to think, they're going to be like, how do I get in on this? Why aren't you telling me how I can get in on this?
Yeah. And I think, what you're talking about too, like the inspirational piece. And I think it is very easy. And I know even if you look at my Instagram feed, I do have the, like the quotes, and I, alternate them with pictures. And just because I don't love content, so that does make it a little easier, but it's really not just about the quote. Like, it's all about the content. That's what's interesting about Instagram that I think a lot of people don't realize. People like scroll through the pictures fast, but what's going to really keep them and get the engagement is the caption and what you write there.
Totally. And I'm not saying you should never post inspirational quotes or whatever. Yeah.
But it's really like, yeah, exactly. It's not about like just rewording the inspirational quote, which I see people do. They just put the quote and that's it. If you are not putting anything in the caption, then you're
missing an opportunity.
Because it's never ever going to lead to anything. It's like, at that point, not to say why bother, but really why bother if you're just kind of not really going deep enough into your clients to bring them back. It does just end up. That's why I think so many people feel like they're wasting time on social media, because they really are without realizing it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It really is actually a waste of time if all you're doing is posting quotes and or scrolling through and reading other people's content, which I know is kind of what a lot of people do. And then they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm on social media all the time. But like, if you feel like you're hanging out on social media and you're not actually engaging, like reaching out to people or posting your own content, like you need to sort of flip the percentages. So you're like 80% at least of your time is spent in creation and connection mode, where only 20% like in consumer mode.
And I love that you made it numerical with your, like, the first hour after I post a picture, I go back and check and I do this. And I think that really helps, like, even just saying, well, if you're going on Instagram every day, then you can leave comments on 5 other people's pictures a day. Like, if you're, that really takes like 5 minutes. But if you're gonna like be scrolling through and wasting time, then at least make it matter that time. So we always have time to do things a little bit better, but sometimes we just have to make it measurable so we can really show up for it, because it's easy to feel like you're doing stuff, but you're not really.
But you're not, yeah. I'm on like kind of a productivity kick lately, and I'm like, okay, where am I actually like, where do I think I'm working, but I'm actually not? And that's one of those things.
Absolutely. I did that for like my first year on Facebook. I just like read everybody else's
stuff.
I really felt like I was part of the group. Like, people knew me. They had like no clue. Like,
yeah.
So Brandon actually says, this is a good question. I'm a brand new copywriter, content marketer. He doesn't have any paying clients yet, but he has a beta client. His biggest hesitation is that he doesn't know what to share since he's brand new. Is it more effective for him to wait until he has paying clients under his belt first?
No, it's not more. You always want to start before you're ready. And you can, so the way I started, so I had like, one client when I first started, and I first started sharing on social media about copywriting. So what I did was start sharing some like tips and just talking about like, so just some basic like copywriting things that people could learn from. And that helped. I also started talking about like why I am passionate about copywriting and why I think it's so important for business owners. There's so many angles you can take that are adding value for your people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, look at my client results. Once you get that, and I highly suggest with your beta client, asking for a testimonial, which I'm sure you probably were already planning that, but like, talk about the importance of copy, why people should outsource copy instead of trying to do it themselves, or when is the right time to outsource. Like, there's so many different ways you can go about educating your people, even if you don't have a ton of experience.
Right. And I think the thing is too, is just remember, like, you start where you're at and you shift it over time. If you like really went and scrolled through all of my old Instagram content, you would see that at first, like, my captions were really tiny. I didn't write that much. It was a little bit generic. And also it was to a different audience than I target now. I never went back and deleted that all. Like, there's no, like, most people aren't going to go back and be that obsessed with me, although you should be, but everything old I've ever done. So it's okay to get started and keep tweaking it and changing, yes. Not worry about like what's in the past. Like Christine said earlier, it has a short shelf life. So, it's going to vanish. If you really want to, you could go back and archive it or hide it or whatever, but there's really, really no need to. It's actually what's doing it that's going to get you more clear.
Yes. And if there's a lot of like really big, like influential people in the internet space, if you go back, scroll way back in their things, like it's just like a normal, like badly filtered photos and random like captions that don't mean anything. So we all start somewhere.
Exactly. One of the mistakes that I feel is a mistake, I'm curious like what you think, this kind of drives me crazy, is that like, so people will share something or people will do a Facebook Live, but like the written description is like nothing. It's like go live and there's no written.
Yes.
Or it's very like they share something and they're like, here you go. You know what I mean? Like, say you target moms and like you share an article that would be good for moms. But like you don't give a description or you don't write anything in. I had a client, she'll probably be watching this later, but we had to work. She's in health and wellness and she would be sharing like journal articles for like professionals. And I'm like, your clients are not reading those. Like, so that's one thing that I see that is a mistake. Should people be doing that? Am I wrong? Am I just like,
no, you're totally spot on. So when it comes to video, the first thing, like, you need a headline at least. You need something to let people know what they're going to learn, if it's for them, like what they're going to get out of it. You have to give people a reason to even click the play button, because unless they're like obsessed with you, what was that?
My client's on. She just said, are you sure?
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, like people, you have to give them a reason to want to click. Unless you're like really well known and you have like an audience who like really they'll click on anything that you share, like you have to give people a reason to hit that play button. So always have some kind of a caption explaining what you're talking about, who it's for, and what they're going to get out of it. Those are the most important things for like a video. And then the other thing is, so if you're sharing something, if you're any content that you put out, again, it has to be geared towards what's going on with your ideal client. I see this a lot actually. And interestingly enough, also in the health and wellness field, I feel like this happens a lot. People will be talking about like GMOs or like I don't even know, like
keto.
Yeah, just like topics within their field, but not gearing it towards like, okay, well, how does this apply to my ideal client, and why do they care about, why do they need to care about this? Because most people scrolling through aren't like, oh my God, GMOs, like I need to know like what this is so important. Like, you have to be like, okay, like, is your hair falling out and you're like, like whatever symptoms that they have going on, whatever problems they have going on, like you have to like bring it back to where people are right now. So, and and if you're sharing like articles and things, like make sure it's something that your people are going to be interested in, so that you're like serving them and not just sharing information.
Right. And like, and I think it is a good opportunity to connect with them and be like, oh my gosh, I wanted to share this with you because of X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for sure, you're bringing up the health and wellness world. I know there's a lot of people here in the health and wellness world. And, I think for us, and I say that as a former therapist, we are still our training was in writing research papers and like writing about symptoms and actually like not writing about the person and kind of like being very subjective. And you sort of have to do the opposite of
Yes.
for connecting with your audience on social media.
Yeah, you have to think of like copywriting is different from like academic or corporate writing in that it's a conversation. So the way I like to think of it is like if my ideal client was sitting in front of me right now and I was saying to them like, hey, this is why, you need someone to write your copy or why you need to be focusing on your messaging. How would I actually verbally say that? And then I would just write that down and that's my copy. So you want to avoid all the jargony, all the like super long sentences. You want it to just be really simple and the way that you would actually speak to another human.
Right. Exactly. And Serena says, in reply to the badly filtered photos and such, she so appreciates that because, it's something that she struggles with is letting people see past stuff, especially on Instagram. And like the majority of people, once again, aren't going to look at it. And if they are, it's because they really love you and they don't care anyway.
They're going to be thrilled that they saw like a picture of your cat from like 5 years ago.
Exactly. So Serena's saying when she does Facebook Lives, she links the opt-in. So she does a call to action to the opt-in and would love ideas on what else she could link or ask. So that's actually a question. What are some good call to actions that people can do?
Yes. So this is definitely another important piece and something that you can start doing today to get more engagement on your posts. So I teach what I call them conscious calls to action because you're like meeting people where they are. Sometimes I see people post and they're posting these CTAs that are like, book a call with me or like sign up for my $2,000 program or whatever. And like, those are really big steps to ask people to take, especially like social media. There's probably a lot of people seeing your stuff that don't know you that well. The chances of somebody actually just immediately getting on a call with you are slim. So you want to ask people to do stuff that's like really easy to do, like leave a comment and tell me XYZ. You can even ask people to just leave an emoji, which is even easier. You can definitely link people to opt-ins. You can link people to, if you have like a Facebook group, you can get people in there. Again, you want to think about like what your current goals are for your business. You can link to blog posts, podcast episodes, other pieces of content. You can ask people to follow you or whatever on whatever platforms, but like make it as simple as possible so that people will actually do it. And that way it gives you the opportunity to then engage more with them.
Right. And I think when you are more consistent, if you're showing up a couple of times a week versus once a month, you absolutely do have more opportunities for the bigger call to actions. Or when you are doing a launch, it's not that big of a stretch for you to like sell from there. But if you only show up during those times or only do that, it's not gonna work as much. It's not gonna convert as much.
Exactly.
It's good to experiment with a range of CTAs, but always make sure you are asking them to do something because it deepens the relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely one of the most important parts of your post.
Right. So how do we stand out on social media and get more engagement? I'm sure the call to actions are a piece of that. Like what else can we do?
Yeah. Call to action's a piece of it. I think that the internet is kind of like, it's so big and it's so vast and there's so many people sharing stuff and most of it is just not very interesting. It's just like watered down versions of what everybody else is saying. And so I think one of the most important things you can do to stand out is to have an opinion about what you do, about your industry, about things that you see, and share it. And the way I teach this is come up with a list of things that you stand for. I call this your hit list. And a list of things that you stand against, and I call this your shit list. And basically share more of those things, like pick a side of the line and like be there and don't be afraid to like call things out that you disagree with, or be like, you know what, this is what I believe and this is like what I think. Like when I share polarizing content like that, it gets better engagement than anything else, because it's like, oh, this is different. Like this isn't like the same thing that I just read in the last like 35 posts I saw. So that is like a really important thing that will help you just differentiate yourself.
I love that. And, you know, I think too, once again, like when you do a variety of posts consistently, do you recommend kind of seeing which of your posts have gotten good engagement in the past and you using that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, this is another reason, be more consistent, because then you have more sort of like data to draw from. But definitely pay attention. What are people resonating with? Like, how did I write that headline? What was this post about? What did I say here? You know, what kind of picture did I share, or what kind of video did I create? And do more of what works.
Right. Right. Now, once you're on and you're being consistent, how can you get people to engage with you, and not just engage and drop a comment, but really take it to the next level, to be your client, to be your customer, to purchase from you, to book consults from you?
Yeah, totally. So I have like a whole free thing to walk you guys through this process too.
Yeah,
So
the
basically,
social roadmap, and it's linked in the description, so you guys can definitely opt in and grab that.
yes. So like it starts with like sharing your content, sharing your message and all of that. And then when people are commenting, when people are engaging with your content, that's an opportunity for you then to further the conversation. So like we talked about this a little bit before, but it's so important that when you ask a question or you ask someone to comment and they take the time to do that, that you then respond. But the way that you respond is really important, because think about like if you were actually having a conversation with a person, like in person, if someone said something, you wouldn't just say, okay, thanks, and
Right.
then stop talking. Like you would keep the conversation going. You would ask them questions. You would engage with them. And so you just do the same thing on social media, and it can start in the comments. And then if you know that you have like a resource, or if you have something else deeper that you want to share with the person, you can send them a DM. Sometimes people will DM you first, which is amazing. I think that the most magic happens on social media in the DMs, because it's a more intimate conversation. You have the opportunity to say more. You can even do like voice memos, which I think is amazing. I love that. And you basically just further engage with people, add value, help them in any way that you feel like you can. And then if it feels like you legitimately can help them, like with your offer, or if they ask about your offer, or if you know, did a post about your offer and they want more information, whatever it is, then you can be like, hey, let's get on a call. And that's basically how you get someone from commenting on your post onto a sales call.
Right. Right. And I think that honestly, here's the thing, right? I mean, I've been in this online world for like 6 years. You've been in it for a few years, and it sounds crazy, but it really is going back to connection. I think that, you know, a few years ago, it wasn't as crowded. People, you know, it was newer, so you could kind of do things like post and like book links to calls. But now people are overwhelmed and like they want connection again.
Yeah.
So it really is important to foster the connection in the comments and do things like that, where it may seem like people weren't doing that. And I think for a while people weren't doing that, didn't have to do that. But I do feel like that's what people want now, because there are so many people out there. So if you're really going to take the time to nurture your audience and build that relationship, you're really going to stand out amongst the others who are just kind of dropping content and expecting people to get there on their own.
Yeah, most people are not going out of their way to really engage with their audiences. So making the effort to actually like treat your audience like they're actual people and get to know them goes such a long way. And the thing is, like, sometimes like you can make a sale really quickly. Like someone will find you, you'll have some engagement, they'll see that you can help them, and then it'll lead to a sale really quickly. But you also have to like think of like your business as a long-term thing, because it is. And sometimes people will come back like a year later, 2 years later, and book these like big projects and packages with you, because that's just how long it took. So like the more you put this effort into like building relationships, the more opportunities around you're going to get. Like I met Nicole because someone who I met through Instagram who happens to like live nearby introduced us and said like, this might be a really cool thing for summer camp, you know, and I wouldn't have that relationship if I didn't take the time to get to know her on social media.
Right. Absolutely. And it is those kinds of opportunities, right? Like we do think sometimes just clients, but you get opportunities for collaborations when people see that you're consistent. Like when I was, you know, booking the guest expert slots, I'm looking for people who are consistently showing up. I'm not going to offer to someone who's like really not showing up or not putting good content out there, or that I can't see anything about or find anything about out there. You know, people who are consistent, and I'm not saying they have to be everywhere. They don't have to be everywhere, but you know, people who I can go and check out, I'm going to be more likely to give an opportunity to.
Exactly. And like, yeah, I've definitely gotten like podcast interviews and things, other like interview style things like this that have then led to clients and, you know, growing my community and all these things. So it is about clients, but it's about a lot of other things that help you just kind of grow your reach and all that stuff.
Right. And give you those extra, like multiple layers of visibility.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it really is, it sounds like, about fostering that, you know, individual connection with your followers. In a public way. It doesn't mean like you have to take everybody off and give them free advice and give them free coaching and DMs or anything like that. You know?
And the more consistent you are and the more you do like share about your offer and the results that you get people, the more you're positioning yourself as like a leader and an expert, the less you have to do all of that one-to-one connecting. Right. If you are newer, I would say the one-to-one connecting is where to focus your energy.
Right. And for you guys who are on, let us know who your target markets are, who you want to connect with on social media, who your ideal clients are that you want more of, you know, because that will help guide your content. The more clear you are on that, the easier it is going to be to create content that connects with them on social media, whatever platform it is. And I was just going to ask you a question and I just forgot. Come back to me.
It'll come back.
It'll come back to me. But how, what can people do right now to kind of up-level their content?
Yeah, I would say if you aren't posting, you need to just start. That's the main goal.
Content is a good start.
Yes. And then I would say like one of the most important things that people, I think, sometimes don't put enough effort into is their headlines. Mm-hmm. So like the very first thing that people are going to see, no matter where you're posting, is this headline. And if it's not something that is really grabbing people, you're not giving people any reason to like click that read more button and actually read your content. So I would say like something that you can start doing today is focus on like, think about like, how can I write a headline that's going to make people click? And a really good way to do this is to like, when you are scrolling, think about like, anytime you click on something, like what made you decide to click? Like what did BuzzFeed write in their headline that made you want to click it? And then start to model your headlines off of the things that make you click. That's a really good place to start. And then, you know, just look at how like the tabloids and magazines and stuff write headlines on their covers, and you can kind of start to see like patterns of how, and then you can model your headlines after those.
Right. And so Michelle's on, she targets sleep deprived parents of babies and children ages 0 to 5. So Michelle, I think even just like you've been doing a lot of calls from people, you've been having clients, like what's something they say over and over? You know what I mean? Like put that as your headline, something that's really descriptive and specific. And the other thing I would say that I see people doing that, like, again, causes, like, notice what causes your eyes to glaze over. Or if there's people's whose stuff you scroll by, you don't read it. Take a minute and read it and see why you constantly scroll by it. Why is it boring? What do you like that they don't do? One thing that I do, and I know it's not good because my eyes glaze over when other people do it, is I use too many I statements. So like talking about myself too much, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's a simple way you guys can, a simple little formula you can use. Like if you start off a post and you're telling like something about yourself and your personal story, by the end of the post, you need to be flipping it to a you statement. So I just call it I to you. And it's basically like, I do this, or I experience this, or I think this. And then like, here's what you can learn from that. Here's how, something that you can try. Like by the end of the post, bring it back to your person and start using the word you, or just change all your I's to use. So even if you are talking about yourself, you can write it as if you're talking to someone else. That's another way to do it.
Right. And that's the piece of really focusing on your audience, right? Not focusing on you, which I think really does take a shift, because for so many of us, when we start out, when we're seeing social media, it's like family and friends sharing things about their lives. And, that's, it really is important to switch into your business owner hat, your mindset, get into the business owner side of you, shut off the personal, like social media side of you, and stay focused on what do your clients need to hear from you? What are they struggling with? What do they want help with? What problems do they want solved? And make sure that your posts are addressing that. And once again, it's not that you can never share something fun or something random, but the bulk of your content needs to be about your clients.
Yes. Agreed.
Is there is there an amount of times people should be posting? Should people write their content at once? Should they do it all sporadically?
Yeah. So in terms of the way that I talk about consistency is that it's not like a one size fits all thing. Like you have to decide what you can commit to and focus on make that what consistency is for you. Right. So that might be showing up on one platform 3 times a week, which I would say is probably the minimum you need to do in order to start to be recognized.
Right.
But then you might be a little further along and you might be like, oh, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and I post every day. Maybe that's consistency for you. So you have to just figure out what it is that you actually can stick to, because it's better to start small and actually do it than to try to do all these things and then not keep up with it and feel discouraged and all those things. So I would say that about consistency. And then I will say that I used to just write my posts on the fly. But then I started batching my content. So I basically write a week's worth in 1 day a week. And it's done a lot. It's done a lot for my business because I am way more consistent doing that. So if that's something you want to try, I highly recommend it.
You can really get focused on your clients during your audience during that hour. You could be like, I'm going to sit here, versus trying to come up with something on the spot and then not really utilizing a story properly to connect with them, and it's very easy to feel get excited and want to jump on and just put something out there. But, I also think this is what gets you out of, just kind of randomly throwing everything out there, and what you can actually to scale your business, to take your business to the next level, right?
It's easier to be strategic if you are looking at the big picture of things instead of just what am I going to post today?
Right. And I love that you've mentioned the goals piece too, because I think that really dictates a lot, and, you guys that's why I'm doing the goal training, because all of these actions, none of them matter if you're not clear on your goals.
Agreed. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
This isn't a hobby. This is a business. And, most of the reason you guys are here is because you want your business to be bigger. You want consistent income. And I mean, consistent income means consistently showing up. And, part of that does require strategy, and part of that does require, a different kind of work attitude that is different from the one that gets us when we first start. When we first started, is you just need to take action and you need to do things. But as you guys are getting busier and you have less time, it is time to sort of switch the way you've done some of these things. So I think too, if something was working for you before and you feel it's not anymore, with social media, were you showing up more before, and now suddenly you're further in your business, it's not as easy because you have more clients, then you do need to plan it out a little bit better.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the reality for me at this point. I wouldn't be showing up if I didn't have some kind of a system in place. I have 1 day a week, I have time set aside to write all my content. And then I have someone who schedules it. So I have a deadline because she needs it to schedule it and everything. And that keeps me going, and keeps me consistent, because it's hard. Once you have more on your plate, it's hard to make stuff like that happen.
Right. Exactly. So, and I think like the deadline thing is important, and the accountability piece. When I have to get something to someone else, I get it done better too. And
Exactly.
I think that, you know, for many of you guys, really start thinking about what's going to keep me accountable. You know, how can I invest time in my business? Like, what's going to hold me to it? What's going to make me follow through on things? So Brandon says he has a tendency to do too much for his posts, writing and or video. Any tips for someone who wants to sit down and write a blog post but not let it blow up into a novel? And I think that's also a good point for even like a Facebook post or an Instagram post.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say like think about what action you want people to take. Think about like what sort of like the main up to maybe 3 points you want to make in your post. And then I would say maybe like try writing your posts for Instagram, because they only give you so much space. Whereas with Facebook, you can go on and on. I don't know if there's a limit.
Yeah. And so blogs have no limit.
Yeah. So, you know, you might try writing for a platform that does have a limit so that you can see like, okay, this is how I have to condense it. And then if you have too much, which has happened with me before, because I will write something in a Google Doc and then go to put it in Instagram, it doesn't fit. Just think about like what doesn't need to be there in order to get your point across. So you can always just cut things out.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I was just thinking that too. Like if you really do feel you write a lot, maybe just let yourself get it all out. Don't self-edit in the middle like of the process, because that might just totally block you from even getting going. Get it all out and then say like what's clear, like what's confusing about this. Or, you know, you might end up just write it all out. You might end up with like 5 posts, which is awesome.
I was just gonna say that, like, yeah, you might be able to break it up. So
yeah, exactly. So that could actually be like a really, really good thing for you as well. So how can people, I think one of the things we talked about was clarity. And I do think it's important to go back to that, because I do feel, once again, when I personally like scroll by things, it's because it's not clear. You know, and I don't even care if it's not clear to me, but like in general, it's boring. It's vague. You know what I mean? Even if it's clear to somebody who maybe I'm not the ideal client, I'm still likely to like follow it or like it because it's just so specific to somebody, or it catches, you know? So how, like, what do people need to know? Are there questions that they can ask their audience to get more clear on what their audience wants to hear from them?
Yes. So there's different ways to do it depending on kind of the size of your audience and where you're at. But the best place to find out what's going on with your ideal client is on sales calls. So you're on there with them. It's like an interview anyway. You're asking them like, what are you struggling with right now? You know, what brought you to the call? What do you want things to look like? What's been holding you back? Like all those questions that are basically standard, like sales calls questions. Those are the same questions that I tell people to ask if you're actually doing market research. So like anytime you're on a call with a potential client, you want to be taking lots of notes about what they're saying, their struggles are, what's going on in their lives. And you can ask, like, you want to try to go deep with people. So like, someone will get on a call and you'll be like, what's going on with you? And they'll be like, oh, like, I'm really tired. I don't have any energy. And then you can ask them, well, like, what does that look like in your day? You know, like, and then they'll start describing like, you know, well, I wake up and like, I hit the alarm like 20 times because I don't want to get up. That right there is something you can write in your copy. Hey, are you struggling to get up in the morning? Are you hitting the snooze button 20 times before you actually get out of bed? Like that makes for more interesting copy than just saying like, hey, are you tired? Because like everybody's tired. Like
exactly. Oh, I used to be I could still work on my being more specific, but I used to be even worse. And I do think like you guys, it's practice, and it is sitting with being uncomfortable of being so specific. It feels uncomfortable sometimes to just be like, make that claim or use people's words. And I don't make claims, but like just being like that, you feel like you're blocking other people out.
Yes, but that's the magic.
So just like, be comfortable with the uncomfortable piece of it.
Yes, and know that again, like one social media post means basically nothing to like your business overall. So like it's cool to just experiment and practice different things that maybe feel a little uncomfortable, but like just to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some good questions to be asking people. And should you, like, what if your writing really is just really not great? Like, you know, what can you do? Like, could you journal or things like that? What can you do can you talk it out and then transcribe?
Yeah. Yes. So there's two exercises that I recommend. One is where you basically you use the voice memo app in your phone and you just say what you want to say and then like transcribe that, and then you'll probably have to clean it up a little bit because we tend to say and am and all that stuff. So that's one way. And then the other way is like you can write it first, but then read it out loud. And if you're like stumbling over the words, if it doesn't make sense what you're saying, then you know that you need to make tweaks, and you can think about like, well, how actually, what would I say if I were saying this out loud? And then you can make changes that way. So those are a couple of good places to start if you're like really struggling.
Right. I think the other thing too is, and I don't know if you have any recommendations on that, but how can you like look at whose content you like that speaks to you and see how you can, you know, you can apply it to your own clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I actually love going into my competitors or like other people in my industry, looking at their content, kind of seeing what they're talking about to see like, well, what's happening in the industry right now? What are people talking about? And then I can put my spin on that, my own opinion. And then also, yes, you can see how people are structuring their posts. And if you're like, oh, this looks like this is really good, then you can be like, how can obviously you're never copying anyone else,
right.
but like, how can I set my post up to like look like this? Or like, how long are their sentences versus how long are mine? Like, you know, they're using like emojis throughout and that makes it look cool. Like maybe I can try that. Like kind of, you can totally do that kind of comparison.
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys, like, I am still struggling with this because my training was as someone who was very like, it was clinical writing. It was not like personal writing. So I still have a tendency to struggle with that area. And I also know that I do come off better in talking that way. So I do have to make a point to do more videos and things like that for that reason, because if I just relied on blog writing all the time, nobody would buy anything from me ever. Michelle says, do what I do and make your wife do all your writing for you. Just kidding. Michelle, if you have somebody who's willing to do it for you, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, there are people like, there are copywriters who you could hire and you just tell them what you want to say and then they'll organize it into actual written form.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's the other thing too is, you know, get feedback on your writing. Get feedback, because sometimes we just cannot see it, you know. And actually one of my clients did something recently that was super helpful. It like transformed her copy. And she was like working with, you know, like newer adults, right? So kids out of college becoming an adult. And she kind of like searched Twitter for adulting and things like that. And her copy was like amazing after that. It was like 100 more times more specific. Because she was able to just get ideas right there and get inspiration. So I think too, like, you know, and I think actually, like, I never used to use Twitter. I don't use it for business, but I go and read stuff. People are so freaking funny on Twitter. Like, it's so in like 2 sentences. So I do feel like it can be very inspirational. Don't be afraid to look outside your normal place.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Oh, Kristen, your stuff was great after going on Twitter and finding that. I think Reddit's another great place. Like, I don't spend a lot of time there, but it's where everyday people, like your audiences, are there and are having some of those like deeper conversations and talking about the things that would be on like your shit list, right? Like,
exactly.
like differing opinions and stuff like that. And I think, you know, even going on Pinterest sometimes, like if I'm thinking about writing about a certain topic, go on Pinterest, see what's up, see what pops up, and get inspirational. Like we don't have to create everything from scratch.
So true. So true.
Yes.
I think the important thing is just like figuring out how you can put your own spin on things so that you aren't just repeating what everyone else is saying.
Exactly. And really using the words of your audience. So that it goes from just being like a general idea to really targeted copy writing content, whatever you want to call it or think about it, that connects with them and that they can say, oh my gosh, this sounds like me.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what really talks about it. And Kristen said, yes, it changed things completely because she thought she was in their head and then Twitter told her otherwise.
That's awesome. Like I hadn't really thought about using Twitter for that purpose, but that's a really good idea.
Yeah. You know, I think that, and I think it's good. It's good to go to like new sources and see like, you know, new sources of inspiration and go outside your box a little bit. Because once again, what you're reading for you is you're not your clients. So if you're reading certain things for yourself and learning for whatever you want to work on your development in your business or personal life, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be helpful to your clients. You have to really go where they are and find out what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Christine, thank you so much for being here today. And you guys definitely check out it's the Savvy Roadmap, right?
It's called the Social Sales Roadmap.
Sales Roadmap. It's in the link. You can click it. It's Christine Blue. I don't know how to say your last name now.
It's okay. It's christineblubaugh.com.
For sure.
Yeah. /summer camp. I made a link just for you guys. So
that's smart. I know. It's like that with my last name too. It's like my name.
Yeah, I have no idea how to say yours either.
All right, guys. So make sure you grab that because that is actually going to give you the steps to get more sales from social media. Yes. And you know, that's what you want. You want the people who find you there, connect with you, and then want to work with you, who want that deeper help, who want that deeper engagement. And that's going to actually then go back and feed more of your good content because you're working with more clients.
Exactly. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So make sure you guys grab that. If you have any other questions, if you're watching the replay, if something comes up, just drop it below. I'll be back checking.
Feel free to tag me if you have any questions for me, and I'll come back and
and go check out her Instagram because once again, she's doing a great job, you know, with storytelling and things like that. And you're just your name on Instagram too, right?
Yep, at Christine Blubaugh.
Yeah. So make sure you go check out her Instagram as well because it's some great examples. Is it your target market? No. But look and see what she's doing for her target market and how that can be applied to your target market. Oh, Michelle, the link is actually in the description of this post. If you just click the full copy, it should pop up, but I'll post it to you as well once I get off. So if you guys need anything else, let us know. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Okay. I was like to double check that I actually stopped.